Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wacky Wonderful Show.
Yeah.
Episode 9.
9.
Maybe 10.
Not keeping track.
I think it's 9.
Yeah.
But, so we've done 9 of these. How you feeling?
Feel good.
Yeah?
I would just leave it there. Feel good.
Feeling good, man. I'm feeling real good. We hope that you guys are enjoying the podcast. If you haven't already known, just quick, what do you call it? I don't know. Housekeeping. There's, on Monday, the podcast for season 10 came out publicly. But if you are on the Patreon, you get to see this show and the podcast and a video version of Midnight Special, all available on Patreon a week early. I mean, even more than that. We also have a pre-show for the $25 a month patrons. So if you're watching this and you like our content, consider joining us on Patreon. But this week, we are week number 2 into the Arcane universe. What are you looking forward to this week?
Well, you say you're going to be analyzing a scene.
I am. I'm going to be talking about the setting.
Setting, yeah.
What does the setting mean in filmmaking? We're going to look at it.
And, you know, I don't know what I was going to say there, but it was something. It was beautiful.
Well, you've been doing a lot of prep. You've been doing a lot of prep for what you are talking about for this week. So anything that's not going to be in the content that you've been thinking about regarding what you've been studying, because you usually sometimes we brainstorm the idea based on kind of what you're thinking about in regard to the specific genre.
Yeah.
Like for example, this one's Arcane. You bring an idea, but this one you're like bringing all the ideas. You're like, I really want to talk about this, and I'm going to craft it in such a way.
Yeah.
What kind of got your mind going on this specific topic?
Well, number one, I didn't want to do another character study just yet.
Okay.
I want to save that for a little bit later. But then I also, I wanted to talk about some of the story concepts, some of the things that keep it interesting, and really, when really what got it started was there was something specific I had in mind that I wanted to talk about regarding like reflections in the show and stuff. But that kind of snowballed.
Okay.
And got me thinking about other things. Yeah. And that's when I ultimately came up with what I am going to be talking about.
And what is it?
So I'm sort of going to be talking about, why we liked it, why you liked it, why I liked the show, and in the context of story elements and character elements that kept us involved, that you may not have picked up on, and that I've been going through and looking at to kind of see. I asked myself the question, like, what kept me interested? Yeah. And so I dove in, and I was just looking at stuff thinking, this is, you don't know it when you're watching the show, but there's story concepts and storytelling characters and things like that keep you interested, and you have no idea that it's happening until it's happened. Yeah,
well, to be fair, you told me you should watch the show. Jamark watched it, I watched it, it's really good, you should watch the show. Yeah. And so when I did, I just found myself watching the first episode. When it comes to shows or movies, like it doesn't have to be super specific, but there's a thing that I vibe with the most. And this sort of steampunk, futuristic, other universe drama action animated series is not usually my vibe. Yeah. But when I was watching it, it's like, okay, I want to watch the second episode now. What happens? And then before I knew it, I had watched the whole show in like 3 days. Yeah. The whole season.
Drama animated show. Yeah. Is really, you hit on a good point there, because it's a drama show as well as, your action.
Oh, it's more drama than action. Yeah. It's way more drama than, and so what you're basically saying is for people like me, when I watched it, I'm like, this isn't usually my vibe. Why is it grabbing my attention so much? And I don't really have a great answer. Yeah. But it seems like you're going to bring the answer to us tonight.
I have some ideas that I think I think are some of the key elements.
Yeah.
John Mark was telling me over the phone, the show is doing what animated shows should be doing more often, and that's longer episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get enough story with a 20-minute episode,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're doing like a 9-10 episodes like
Mm-hmm.
this. Do those 45-minute episodes, and they weren't afraid to do that, and that added so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like a regular live action show.
Yeah.
Really, it was really, I think, what the show needed was those longer episodes.
Yeah. It's super engaging. If you have not yet watched Arcane on Netflix, well, first off, we know you have a Netflix account.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on Earth has access to a Netflix
Yeah,
account.
if it's not yours, it's somebody
else's.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. It's acceptable within the rules of streaming.
Right.
And
what a crazy world.
It's a crazy world, man. And we got Bitcoin, Dogecoin.
The rules of
Elon Musk
streaming.
is out there being like, if you pay me 30 million Dogecoin, I'll give you a Tesla. And yeah, we live in a strange time.
I like the general what do you call it? Not rules, but like I'm missing the word.
I don't know what you're going.
For there's like rules to having an account, having like a Netflix account that
Okay.
you're gonna let other people log in, and you're gonna
unspoken rules.
the unspoken rules of streaming.
Yeah, I mean, I personally shared my Netflix account with you guys and one other person.
It's like letting somebody borrow a movie or a DVD.
Except there's nothing that has to be returned.
Right.
It's just don't give away my password.
Yeah, that's the rule is don't start giving this information away to other people.
This is privileged information.
Yeah.
But if you don't, going back to what I was saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you haven't watched Arcane yet, you ought to. It's based on League of Legends, the game, but good grief, I didn't know I'd be into League of Legends.
I was like, I kind of want to play League of Legends.
I kind of want to play League of Legends.
I want to see what League of Legends is like.
I want to see what Vander and Jinx and Silco are like in the game.
Yeah.
You know? I assume
So get on your mama's Netflix account.
Yep.
And watch the show.
Watch Arcane. I don't think you'll be disappointed, and maybe after Wyatt's video, you will see, hey, this could be for me, even if I think it is or it isn't. I might still love it.
Yeah.
You know? So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going first. Once again, I'm going to be looking at a scene that involves Jinx and Silco in Jinx's lair, which is a wacky place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a short scene, they have an exchange, and I'm going to be analyzing it to help us all understand what setting means in video production, what the term setting means. So let's get into it. Hello everybody, welcome back to yet another video regarding Arcane and understanding film production, taking scenes from movies and shows and analyzing them to the point of learning film production. I am yet still a believer that if you can analyze scenes from shows or movies and know what you're looking for, well, you can actually start learning things every time you watch a piece of media. You can start learning the filmmaking craft. And so what we're here to do today is that very thing. We're going to be looking at a scene from the show Arcane. And what we're focusing on today, we've looked at lighting, we've looked at rules, we've looked at all kinds of stuff in previous videos. But today we're going to kind of see if we can analyze the idea of what setting is. We've all heard the term setting in film. Well, it's an actual film term. It's an actual production term. And what we're doing is we're going to be looking at a scene and helping us understand that. So right off the bat, I want to give you guys a definition of what setting is. Those elements within the frame that function to depict space, place, and time period. With that in mind, we're going to go ahead and look at this scene. This is the scene in Jinx's lair. Silco comes in because there has been some enforcers that Jinx has happened to kill, and he's upset. So let's go ahead and start off. Okay, so right off the bat, the music sets a specific vibe for the setting itself. It kind of, before it shows us a big wide shot, which we'll get to in a second, it's kind of already introducing us to what's the vibe of this. This might be something that feels like Jinx. All right, and this is an establishing shot of Jinx's lair, which is honestly a super cool, wacky, dark place that she spends most of her time. She does her inventions here. She does her art, and we know that this is her lair for a couple reasons. First, let's look at the color, the tone of things. Well, it's very green, and we know that the show associates green with the lanes. You know, the Undercity. It has this toxic fumes in the air, and they depict that through the color green. So we see that there's green, so we know it's in the lanes. We know that this is Jinx's lair because not only have we seen it previously, but we're back to seeing a big establishing shot with all of this art, this sort of neon glow-in-the-dark art that she does a lot of. And so before it shows actually a close-up of her, we kind of know this is her lair. We're in her space. Okay, we got Silco entering the space.
That's me.
Okay, so I really like how it brings Silco into the space. It's just confirming what I had said earlier. We are in Jinx's lair, and it's very much her. Her space is her. And we've seen this previously in other episodes from the show, but if you were just to enter into this scene, which some of you might be, if you haven't seen the show, this might be your first time seeing this scene. Well, this is her vibe. You have all of this art she draws on things. It's a mess. It's loud. It's energy, almost manic energy, because she's manic a lot of times. Crafting, she's building weapons probably. And so he enters her space. So as far as setting goes, we do know the place. We do know the space. It's her lair. It's in the lanes. So let's go ahead and keep watching if we can get an idea of the time period, the next part of the setting.
Half a dozen enforcers dead. Enforcers dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is already, even in the dialogue, we're understanding when this takes place. The time frame of when this takes place. So if you watch part of the other show, we know that when this happens is a couple of things, but as of right now, we know it is after, probably right after, Jinx had killed a dozen enforcers from topside. And so there's a sense of time. I mean, this seems to be fresh to Silco based on how he's reacting. He's just learning about it. So we're getting an idea for time inside of the writing of this scene. Let's keep going.
Building blown to pieces.
Oh. Yeah.
Do you have any idea what you've done?
Actually, I do.
Okay, so we have the Hexteh Crystal. And so this also is letting us know at what point in time. If you know from the show, the original Hexteh technology, there are other things like Jinx is older. She's with Silco. These are cues as to when this is taking place. But this is also a cue because this is the modern version of the Hexteh, essentially. These crystals were more jagged, they were more rough, they were more unstable at the beginning of the show before it jumps years later. And so she holds this up. We know two things. One, based on the time frame, she killed a dozen enforcers. Silco just found out. And now she's revealing this Hexteh crystal. It's the new one. And so we can assume this is like, we make the connection. She killed enforcers to get the crystal for Silco because it's what he wants. And she's like, I can just go get it for him. So we know in context of the story, this, based on if we just had this scene, we kind of know exactly where this scene, this conversation between them is taking place inside of the story. Are you starting to understand a little bit of how to define the setting in a scene? It's a little bit what you're showing visually. It's a little bit of how it's written. And it's a little bit of how characters are interacting and what characters know about each other and about the plot, essentially, that either has or hasn't taken place yet. I also want to point out, this is not so much setting. I want to point out, I've noticed this show does a great job at show don't tell. They don't give us a whole lot of dialogue unnecessarily. So I'm actually going to rewind a little bit. We're just assuming that Jinx killed these enforcers, that she was the one who did it, based on his reaction. Now, if you watch the show, you know that's correct. But if you didn't watch the show, you can kind of make the same assumption, right? They never said, you killed all these people. Silco never addressed her to be the one at fault here. He is just expressing emotion, and he is saying fact. They don't even say the term hex crystal in this scene, Hexteh Crystal, or anything like that. She just holds it up, and the whole mood shifts. And so this show is crazy good at telling a story visually mixed with the minimum but just the right amount of dialogue and communication between characters.
To pieces!
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any idea what you've done?
Actually, I do. Happy Progress Day!
Again, it's just another little moment to show unnecessary but manic excitement energy that you only get inside of Jinx's lair, because this is crafted by her. Like, this is an unnecessary bit of what she just did, but it's fun, it's visually interesting, and it's setting the tone for who she is as a character and what her space is to her. Notice the music here. It's very ominous, almost like, I don't know, let's just back that up just a second. Just really pay attention to the music here, that we get a vibe for it. Jinx inside of her own space. Another interesting part to this is we know that if you watch the show, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, between Silco and Jinx, there's contention that's created later on in season 1. And so we also know, based on this scene, if you watch the scene, you have no idea where it was, but you know kind of what happens in the season. You can watch the scene and know, well, they're still on good terms. She still sees him as her almost emotional protector, her provider, her father in a lot of ways, that kind of took the place of Vander earlier in the season. This reinforces even the body language, the relationship between them. This all reinforces the setting, which is the place, the location, roughly. So like the scene inside the space, or the space in the place, and then also the time period. And this is like a basic understanding of what the setting is. If you can go a layer deeper, you can also say there are some props. So if you were to define props, it's what characters physically interact with in a scene. And so props can also dictate what period of time, the setting that this is in. So for example, the Hexteh Crystal that Silco's holding there, that's a prop that it reinforces the setting. If you ever read a screenplay at the top, it'll say like interior, night, I don't know, maybe some characters' names, raining. This is setting up the setting a little bit, and then you get into the details of when and where this is happening. It's understanding. And the cool thing is we can look at scenes like this and backtrack, reverse engineer the planning that went into even quick scenes like this. I believe this scene is only a minute and 14 seconds, a minute 13 seconds, yet so much thought and preparation was put into this. I mean, they could have taken the easy way and just done something lazy with the writing and say, why did you kill all those reinforcers? They didn't really say that. He just said, this is a fact. Through the body language and the relationship, we understand what happened. That's great writing. It's setting up the setting perfectly, and it's cool because the setting kind of lives inside of the scene. Without realizing it, without defining it, you just kind of take it at face value. But when you point it out and you try to understand it, well, then you can get a better idea of what filmmaking, crafting a scene, telling a story is like. Then you can imagine yourself in the writing room, making these creative decisions people, the creators of Arcane, made to prepare this wonderful show for us. Just for funsies, before I close this out, let's go ahead and rewatch. I really like this scene. I just love the vibe of it. I want to watch this end bit again with the ominous and then the hug and everything. It's just a beautiful scene. Let's watch it one more time.
Happy Progress Day!
Man, that just hits different. I don't know why. That turn was heavy, but it made sense. Silco's emotion made sense. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I want to invite you to watch a week early. And by that, I mean, this is a part of the Wacky Wonderful Show. This is a clip that we all, well, it's either inside the Wacky Wonderful Show or you're watching a clip on our Wiseworks Studio channel. Either way, you can watch content like this a week early if you join us on Patreon. We're looking for support to keep doing videos like this and a podcast that myself, my friend Wyatt, my brother Josh, we do every single week. And we just love talking about stories, films, and giving our nonsense ideas every single week for hours. So thank you so much for watching. Consider supporting us on Patreon. The link is in the description. And subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell me what you thought about this scene and maybe something that stood out to you, some thoughts that you have. I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're going to be getting into a little bit more Arcane, talking about the show, talking about some of the things that I think kept you watching. What made the show interesting for you? What made it interesting for me? A few of the story ideas and characters that, as the show went on, you know, some of the ideas and concepts that kept us involved. You know, we talk a lot about what made a show good, why people liked watching it. You can go look for things and they're going to tell you, oh, the animation was great. Just the general plot was great or whatever. But there's always some underlying things in a show like this that keep people watching that they don't even really know is there or hasn't been addressed yet. So in this video, we're going to be talking about 3 main ideas that I have for what kept you watching and what kept you interested, why you enjoyed the show so much. So first, we're going to be talking just a little bit, just briefly, on the idea of characters who contrast each other. So for example, you've got Vander and Silco, and we don't get a ton of on-screen time with these two, but we get enough. We get enough to understand their relationship and that at one point they were friends and they were working towards a goal, and that was isolating what's known in this world as the Lanes as part of Piltover, the city, isolating it from what they call Topside, the rich part of Piltover, and making it its own nation, the nation of Zaun. And that was their goal throughout their friendship and what they were trying to do. Of course, we know that their relationship does, eventually degrades and they become enemies and start fighting. But it's one of those things that, we understand in media of 2 characters. Usually you have brains and you have brawn. Silco's obviously the brains, Vander's the brawn. The story kind of flips that idea on its head when it comes to a lot of the characters, because you'll have strong characters who are intelligent, or you'll have your brainy type characters who are incredibly dangerous. The show does a really good job of keeping you on your toes, never knowing who's who sometimes. Another contrast that we have is Vi and Powder. You got, again, intellect and physical strength. Vi is, she's the boxer, she's the leader, she spearheads the adventures and the going out and doing stuff and getting things. And Powder's, at least when she's young, before she becomes Jinx, she's the brainy inventor. None of her stuff ever works, and that's a good contrast. Again, it's that, what we're familiar with, big guy, little guy trope is what it's called. When you have two characters that contrast each other, whether it be in their mental capabilities, smart versus dumb, or, kind of nice versus kind of a jerk, but they're always together, fat, skinny, big, small. It's something that we're familiar with, that the show turns on its head a little bit. Another example, I don't have any pictures here, but is Mel, Medarda, and her mother. And Medessa are another representation of that. Of Mel is very smart, and she's small and slender, and her mother is just this big, strong warrior type. But that's sort of the contrast. Contrast keeps us interested in the characters when you know that they're not all going to be the same. And that leads us into our next idea, which is reflection. So we have characters that are more or less reflections of each other. And the show actually shows us this with the city. You have Piltover as a city. You have one side of the bridge is Topside. That's rich people, all the council and everything. And then you have the lanes, and that's where you've got all the crime, all the stuff going on down there. So from that idea of Topside versus the lanes, you have character reflections. So first of all, you've got Jace, who is smart. He's an inventor. He has very clear ideas and goals for what he wants and what he wants to accomplish with his ingenuity and with his brain and with his mind. And then his reflection on the Lane's side is Jinx. Jinx is also an inventor. She's intelligent. She's always making stuff. And you could see how these two characters, if you were to flip their circumstances, you put Jinx on the top side of things, and you put Jace in the lanes, that you could get a very similar outcome of what their lives end up being, since they're both inventors. Jace wants to make his stuff for progress, for making a better world, and Jinx wants to make her stuff for violence and explosions and all the things that make her happy. And you could see how if that were flipped, you would get a similar result, perhaps, just given environment. The next example is Mel Medarda. She's very political. She's intelligent. She sort of understands those things about court, about the people that, the subterfuge and all of the political machinations and everything. And she's very much into that. That's her thing. Her mother's very much about war, and she likes to find more diplomatic solutions. And her opposite, her reflection, I would consider to be Silco. He's very similar, politically minded, but with different drives and different motives. Prefers to find a less violent solution, but has sort of come to the conclusion that violence is often the answer, but it's never him. He's never the one doing the violent actions. And you see that with a lot of characters who are politically involved, but not necessarily the muscle of the operations. Another reflection, and this is just a short observation, is Heimerdinger, the scientist on the council, a genius, but his reflection on the Lane's side isn't a genius, and that is Vander. As you can see, both of them, the reason I chose these two to reflect each other is because they both have incredible facial hair. And they both make decisions to protect and to keep the status quo, but sacrificing something that could be progressive. So Heimerdinger, he's pushing back against the idea of magic being involved in science. And he does this at the cost of, potentially a better future for everybody, because his species lives hundreds of years, and he just wants to maintain the status quo, people that are safe, people that are happy, and not potentially make things worse by adding something that could be volatile into that environment. Vander does the same thing when it comes to the lanes. He's the one who wants to protect it. He's the one who wants to maintain the status quo. If they all try to gang up against Topside and do another rebellion, it's just going to keep the people that have found a measure of safety and a measure of hope. It's going to destroy that for them. What could be progress, he would prefer to avoid that and just maintain the safety of the people who are here. And finally, just briefly, again, between Topside and the lanes, you have the council up in Topside of Piltover, just the people gathered for making decisions and all the stuff that the city needs. But these are also political people, and they're individuals as well, so they each have like vices and things that they use their power for to keep themselves happy and to manipulate others. The flip side of that is the Chem Barons. In the lanes, you have this sort of pseudo-council of powerful people who have come together since even before Silco's time, even in Vander's time, of people who are protecting their own interests, using the industry to make money for themselves. It's sort of like this one's kind of like a crude reflection of what the council has going on. The third idea that I want to talk about is resolution. For characters to be interesting and for you to be able to feel invested, characters have to have resolve. By the end of the third episode, most of our main characters, they make a decision or they find a resolve that will carry them through the rest of the season. And this is really important for overall character arcs. So for example, you have Jinx, or Powder at the time, makes a decision to go to the factory and release her bomb, and it has bad repercussions. So based on that decision, she loses some of her family, all of her family, and she ends up with Silco, becoming the person that she'll be through the rest of the series. Then comes challenge, where your idea based on your resolve is challenged in some way. Silco as well made a decision to kidnap Vander, which had repercussions of its own with, his kids coming to try to save him. But the biggest decision he made in that third episode was adopting Jinx. This is challenged later when she starts doing crazy, weird stuff that, he doesn't support, and she starts killing people. And so that idea is challenged by Jace when he says, I can give you the nation of Zon, but you're going to have to give me Jinx. And then ultimately, by the end of the show, your characters will make another resolve. And this isn't always the case in movies and TV shows, but it is the case in this one. And I feel like it's part of what makes it good is by the end, they make a new decision. They decide something that's going to be pivotal moving forward. So his decision that he made based on the challenge was not to give Jinx up. He says, I would have never given you to them. For his character, he dies and his resolve ends there. But every character has one of those moments where they have to make a new decision for what they're going to do moving forward. As characters move through stories, they have to have the appropriate story beats. So if you're familiar with Brandon Sanderson, who wrote the Stormlight Archive, the Way of Kings, Mistborn series, he said an important part of character development is to have promise, progress, and then payoff. And the show does that so well. I'd say the first 3 episodes give us promise, especially the end of the third episode, big promise for what the rest of the show is going to be. And then all the way to the end, we get progress. Progress. And then finally, it ends with payoff. characters deciding to, in Jinx's case, blow up the council. Silco deciding not to give her up. Just things that make the show feel resolved while we know that there's more to come, if you know what I'm saying. Those three ideas of contrasting characters, reflection of characters, and the resolve of characters were so consistent in this show. They took the idea of subtext of the characters and how they're written and the way that you almost have two sides of the same coin. And they kept that idea rolling throughout the show. And it made every decision the characters made feel impactful. And that's why I feel it was such an enjoyable show for me. And I hope that's why you guys feel it was an enjoyable show for you. Let me know what your ideas are about story beats and character arcs and contrasts and stories. Just leave a comment and a like. If you guys want to support us, think about checking out our Patreon, and we'll see you next time.
What a wacky show that was.
It's
not
always
only not only ours, but Arcane.
Arcane. Yeah.
Arcane is wacky. And I'm gonna be honest, man. I as I kind of said at the top, I didn't know why I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to see. It's almost like they explore the story in a very complex way. So you have all these characters that do reflect each other, that are, different sides of the same coin, that, Batman, Two-Face, narrative. And the cool thing is you get to see people that have similar circumstances or different circumstances, but similar types of people make decisions based on who they are and their circumstances and their motivations. And you have like this beautiful bouquet of ideas and thoughts and pathways that this story takes, and they're all interacting with each other.
Yeah.
And they're all consequential.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes it feel relatable. Even though this is a crazy, wacky world that, you're experiencing in this show, the emotions and the feelings that these characters have feel human.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's crazy, they feel real.
Yeah.
The emotions feel real.
Absolutely.
And that's why people can resonate, because it's distinctly human.
I would say almost every scene, including the action fighting scenes, it's connecting with you on a person level in some ways. I mean, even the parkour scenes. I mean, the show opens up, not quite opens, but one of the first scenes of the show is Powder struggling to be as brave as everyone else in the group.
Yeah.
And that's like scene number 2 or 3, And so it's very relatable on so many fronts. And then the diversity of characters. I mean, there's somebody out there that, relates to Jinx on some level.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Jinx is a crazy character.
Yeah.
I mean, Jinx is wild, man.
Well, I mean, I didn't get to it in my video because I feel like I had 100 thoughts in my head. But one of the other reflections that I saw was between Mel and Silco is that they're both using people with technological insight for their own means.
Yeah, they are.
Silco's using Jinx, Mel is using Jace.
Yeah.
To help further get what they want.
And they both hold power over everyone else on their separate councils. So in the context of their status with other people, they're similar.
Well, I mean, Mel's more hot. Yeah. But Mel's more like, what are these people's vices? And I'm gonna put my finger on that vein. Whereas Silco's like, I'm gonna fill this room full of gas. I'm gonna fill this room full of gas so y'all can't breathe.
I'm gonna put my finger on your disposition of being a biological creature.
On your jugular.
And he's just like breathing. He's like, you all forgot what it was like to have strong lungs, essentially.
Yeah, he's like, don't you remember where we came from? I love that scene because they're all
chilling.
like, and he's like,
I've been breathing this my whole life.
yeah. Started from the bottom, still here.
There's actually a lot to this show. I'm actually considering rewatching it from the start because there's a lot that I missed. One of the things that, strangely enough, that I missed, and it's because it all explains it kind of in one scene that I feel like I might not have been paying attention to at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
The backstory with Silco's eye.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the details until I watched few YouTube videos, and I was like, wait, did I miss that?
Yeah, he was being choked out by Vander, and
Vander got him in the eye.
Yeah, he got him
And
and then when he's down there in that dirty, nasty water of the lanes,
gets in his bloodstream.
These planes.
These planes, man.
We got planes around here.
We got lots of
Jets.
And
they're really cool, but
not for recording.
Not for recording. Yeah, no, that's a good scene.
Yeah, it is.
I actually watched that scene today.
Well, I did too.
Where he's talking about like when you have all the muck and the filth and everything.
Yeah.
Crawling into an open wound.
We were watching the same scene today.
Yeah.
Was it because we were looking for that one scene?
Yep.
Yeah, we were both looking for the same scene.
Yeah, which
that
I don't
didn't
think
find.
exists.
You think it was just in your
I
head?
think it was in my head.
You're probably thinking Batman.
I would for sure thought that Silco had a two sides of the same coin metaphor.
It actually written into the story.
I thought that was there. But
so Wyatt's like, I'm pretty sure there's one. Let's look for it. So I was looking for it. You were looking for it. Neither of us found it. And I guess we both stumbled across the exact same scene from the show in the process of looking for that.
Yeah.
It made sense. It's like, oh, this seems like a good place for it to be.
Right.
Talking to Vander. Vander's wounded. Ah, man. Yeah, I'm going to watch this show again. I think, what did you think? Do you think when you analyze a scene, going on to kind of the setting, the production side of it, it's super hard for me to look at this in filmmaking classic narrative style because that's the way it was designed. But when it comes down to it, everything about it, everything visually, it's all crafted in a computer.
Yeah.
So it's all these artists having to make something that looks legitimate. I mean, even down to, my goodness. So I was watching this one YouTuber who was doing stuff on this, and he said his favorite scene was, what is the character's name who has a limp, who works with...
Victor.
Mm-hmm. When he fixes his leg and he starts running for the first time, he drops his cane and starts running. He was just analyzing the run.
Yeah.
And he was showing, and he wasn't talking about like the filmmaking lighting side of it, but that's what I was noticing. I mean, he was noticing like they did create as it starts speeding up, like that side profile shot of him running, they made the camera movement feel like it's handheld.
Yeah.
Just like you would just like it would look in a normal film. And just the style, the animation of how they got his run so convincing. Mm-hmm. But what I was noticing was, the light, what do you call them? The little poles with lights on them. Light stand or something.
Yeah.
The lamps. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that would be right.
That were above him.
Yeah.
That every time he ran past, you didn't even hit him a lot. It's just a little touch on his shoulder and then on his back as it ran past. So it was just light, just moving past him in a really quick fashion. There's just the attention to detail. And then they zoomed in on the feet, and every time he takes a step, there's a unique splash of water coming off his feet.
I noticed things like, when you had it paused, Jinx is holding the Hexteh crystal. Mm-hmm. Like
her
nails, the paint on her nails is chipped.
Yeah.
I was like,
and
what?
The fingernails are uneven.
And her fingernails are uneven.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Fingernails are chipped, man. There's so much detail put into this. And it's wonderful. I mean, if you pause it on the scene where she's smiling with her teeth are crooked. Mm-hmm. Like each individual tooth is set a certain way.
Well, that's, and I was watching one YouTuber was talking about the micro expressions.
Mm-hmm.
This show, I don't think I've seen any other show do this quite like this one, is the micro expressions. Somebody's eye twitching, or when you can see somebody going, like, making a decision, their eyebrows are moving, their lips are moving.
Their people just goes like, just a little tiny movement.
The skin on their face, you can see them making decisions, and that's intrinsically human. And I think that's why the show is.
It grabs you.
It grabs you, man.
Visually, it grabs you because the world they create is so convincing. And then the story, it grabs you because there are so many opportunities. I mean, it's like the Game of Thrones syndrome. When you got so many characters, they're diving into so many stories and ideas and motivations. Well, it's like you can't help pay attention. Even dull characters, You just still like, well, how are they going to affect these people?
Yeah, like what's going on? Like characters you don't even think that you would care about, like the corrupt police officer. He walks into the room of his daughter, and you're like, man, is Silco gonna kill his daughter in front of him? Dude, this is crazy. And
oh man,
Silco's not gonna do that.
Yeah, because he has a soft place.
100% Silco's not gonna kill this man's daughter in front of him.
But you're thinking it's
Silco,
man.
But you're like, but he might.
He might.
But
Silco
he might
try to choke out a whole council of people with just gas, just for funsies,
for fun.
For funsies. It was to get a point across, but he was probably for funsies.
Yeah, he was having fun.
He did craft Jinx. I mean, Jinx was her own behaviors mixed with his ideas and his goals, so he can create some rotten stuff. But we love it. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it.
We're both here for it. I say we wrap it up there. If you enjoyed this, give the video a like, subscribe to the podcast channel, and one more time, would you consider following us, supporting us on Patreon? We have a couple tier options based on whatever fits your enjoyment week to week. So if you would consider supporting us there, we love you. We'll be back again next week with more Arcane. I think we got 2 more weeks of this. 2 more weeks of Arcane before we go on to the next adventure. I feel like Bilbo running through.
Not yet. We're not done with this one. We're halfway through.
I don't know if we're going to Bilbo next, but we'll see. And we love you.
See you next time.